Hello! We're taking a look now at the second iteration of the EyeSkills prototype. Now this is pretty useful for finding out what somebody with amblyopia and strabismus perceives and perhaps what they're even capable of. So let's start at the beginning. We're not going to get anywhere if the person can't use each eye individually. So we have a couple of simple tests to find out what they can do with each eye. Now you as a practitioner have, for example, control over this via a web interface, or as I'm doing right now, a Bluetooth virtual reality controller. If I move it around here, up and down,
binocular suppression,
I can hear where we are in the menu. So monocular suppression, I click on OK in the controller, and we go in there. Now, this is open source, we can extend it, change it, modify it. And what we've done is we've built in two simple things to take a look at what the eye is capable of. In the monocular suppression, we can take a look at one eye at a time. So it says right eye is active. Holding the joystick left for a second and releasing,
45 left eye active.
We get a switch to the left eye. So we can decide which eye we're looking at. Let's go back to the right eye.
Active.
If I push and hold down, or up, depending on how you look at it, with the joystick, and let go.
50% brightness.
Sorry, push and hold.
2 meters away.
It changes the distance of the disc, or depending on how you look at it, just the size of the disc. This is something which can affect whether or not the disc is visible to a person. We can also change the brightness by just pressing quickly in quick succession up, 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 or down, 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 like for example, up.
55%, 6, 6, 7, 7, 80, 85% brightness. 8, 7, 30% brightness.
And to see, is there a point at which they can no longer see the disc? We can move it further away again with a long push.
3 meters away.
Or bring it closer with a pull back on the joystick.
2 meters away.
A thing we could do to extend this would be to move the disc around to see if we can find blind spots in the person's retina, for example. We fixate a central fixation point and then move this disc around, but these are all extensions and enhancements that we'd like to explore together with you. So if we click on cancel on the controller, we come back to the main menu.
Monocular suppression. Binocular suppression.
So we've established that the person can use each eye individually. Now let's take a look at what they can do with both eyes together. Is one eye suppressed at all times? So we start in a non-conflicting state. If I go into the binocular suppression scene, what we see are, in the right eye, triangles going up, and in the left eye, triangles going down. And it appears to the mind as if the whole screen is full. What's interesting in this mode is that they don't overlap. There's no part in the retina of, for example, the left eye, which has any conflicting signal coming in from the right eye that there's something different there. Yes, there is an absence of something, but interestingly, anecdotally so far, we've found that doesn't seem to be registered as conflict. So we can actually put things out of conflict like this, and then you simply ask the participant to look up or down. Well, first of all, can they see the arrows pointing up and the arrows pointing down? If they can't, if they can only see the arrows pointing down, then they're only seeing with their right eye, and their left eye is suppressed, or vice versa. And what we can try is look up and down, and it changes the relative luminance of the triangles. So it's possible in some cases to find a point where we boost the signal to the weak eye and reduce it to the strong eye so that you get a weak signal coming to the brain but from both eyes, even when suppressed. We can also, by pushing up,
eyes in conflict,
put this into a conflict situation where the diamonds, or the triangles, I beg your pardon, overlap. Now what happens? Do they suddenly only see down triangles or up triangles? We can see, by changing the conflict mode, if that's causing the suppression. And then in this mode, we can try again, to break suppression by altering the relative luminance of one group of triangles over another. Now, if we found a point where we can break suppression, where we can force through that inhibition at the back of the optical nerve through GABA inhibitors, then we can bludgeon our way forwards and force the brain to deal with both eyes. Now, at that point, the person would be seeing in a misaligned fashion, which is obviously no fun, and it's not going to help them. So, if we've stored that ratio to breakthrough suppression, we can now move on to misalignment measurement. Now, in this, what we're going to do is we're going to select which eye is strabismic, and we're going to rotate the whole view of the world for that eye to a position where it appears to be centered for that eye. So the same object will appear in the center of both retinas in both eyes, even if one is misaligned. So we are simulating, as if we're using a prism, a world in which both eyes are straight, taking into account our binocular suppression ratio, so breaking suppression. Now, what we do in this scene is we
choose the strabismic eye with a long left or right
select
leg.
Which eye is strabismic first of all. So if you have this on right now and you have straight eyes, what you'll see is an impossible colour, literally. The yellow and the cyan are overlapping, and this very strange colour that's sort of shimmering and quite stunning comes out. Now, if my eyes are misaligned, of course, the cyan will be off to one side or the yellow will be off to one side, and they won't be overlapping. So, first of all, choose which eye is misaligned, which eye is strabismic. For example, the right eye, by holding the joystick to the right for a second and releasing.
Right eye is strabismic.
Now, as the participant moves their head around, the rod or the cone for the right eye shifts. Exotropic, esotropic. Now, ask them to line them up until they overlap perfectly. Now, right now, my eyes are perfectly straight, so the straight ahead is when they overlap. For an exotropic, it might be here. For an esotropic, it might be here. And we save that angle, and we continue to use it in the following calibrations and tests. And we will do in the following games, and so on and so forth. So, we have our misalignment angle. Now,
binocular suppression by misalignment measurement.
We can now break suppression and present the world as if the person's eyes were straight. So in the next scene, we're going to see, based on a classic test, how good the person's depth perception is.
Next.
We can see, against a diamond background, 4 discs, one of which appears, if you have depth perception, to be considerably closer than the others. And it'll randomly be changed 10 times in a row, and in increasingly or decreasing elevation with decreasing elevation. So for example, now it's the right one.
Correct. Next.
The bottom one.
Correct. Next.
The right one.
Correct. Next.
The top one.
Correct.
They're getting harder and harder.
Next.
The right one.
Correct. 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 Next.
The bottom one.
Correct. Next.
Now I'm not sure. I think the right one.
Correct. 10 in 10 correct.
Okay. So we also get some feedback about how many we got right.
Binocular suppression.
And it drops us back into the menu. So you would have given the participant the USB controller in that moment to make their selections. So we now have some idea about their state. We are able to present them an environment in which they can use both eyes and not only fuse but practice their depth perception, or we can see how good the depth perception is. And we can now take a quick look at something that I've inserted in there that we found is very useful for straightening. So now we're moving on to eye straightening scenes.
Alternating fusion.
So with alternating strabismics, we had the idea in one session that if they tried to change the fixating eye as quickly as possible, because it takes time for the other eye to fall away, to be suppressed and to fall to the side, if they could continually change their fixing eye as quickly as possible, there wouldn't be time for the eye to fall away. Both would be straight. Now, with one person with alternating strabismus, this was incredibly effective. In fact, he was able to willingly alternate his eye so quickly that he could verge on a fixation object, and the next day was the day in which he had his breakthrough, and for the first time in his life at will could see straight, or position both eyes straight. Right, so I've got to edit this out. So now we're going to move on to looking at eye straightening scenes. The first of these scenes is very useful for alternating strabismics. We have found, by accident, that asking people with alternating strabismus to, if they are able to rapidly change which eye is fixing on an object, the alternative eye, the weak eye, has very little time to fall away. And if they can do it quickly enough, both eyes straighten up to the point where they can even do vergence. And where we did this with one of our alternating strabismics, the next day they sent me a video with, for the first time in their life, perfectly straight eyes and the ability to perceive depth. An absolute breakthrough for them. So let's take a look at it.
Eye straightening. Alternating fusion.
Remember, in the menu we're just using up and down. Now, we start off by presenting a colour to each eye in an alternating fashion at a low number of hertz. Now, there's enough time here to change which eye is fixating, and you as a practitioner, or they as a participant, by pressing up, or beg your pardon, by pressing right,
2 hertz,
can gradually increase the speed at which this alternation is happening.
3 hertz, 4 hertz, 5 hertz,
and we can keep going until
7 hertz.
They actually start to perceive this as a single object
8
with a
hertz,
single
9
colour.
hertz,
This
10, 11 hertz,
the imaginary colour,
13 hertz,
the cyan yellow,
16 hertz,
Now we're not taking into account the misalignment angle here. These are both presented centrally, and if they can manage this, what's happened is they are holding a straightened position with both eyes, and their brain is getting the message that, hey, it's okay, this works. Now, let's have a look at another example, the other eye straightening scene.
Binocular suppression.
If I go back into the misalignment measurement,
Eye alternating fusion. Diamond depth perception. Misalignment measurement.
and I simulate an exotropic right-eyed strabismic,
Choose the strabismic eye with a long left or right click. Right eye strabismic.
and click on confirm.
Binocular suppression. Diamond depth perception. Alternating fusion. Eye straightening.
What will happen in the eye straightening scene is that we present the two circles taking into account the eye misalignment. So for the person with the misaligned eyes, they appear to be perfectly overlapping, although in reality they aren't. Now, when you click on the OK button on the controller, we're slowly going to rotate the world and bring both those circles to the straightened position. And it's the job of the participant to try to maintain fusion for as long as they can. Because for them, of course, it's going to be moving away from the two circles overlapping. So it's like a dynamic prism. It's like a prism that's gradually altering its strength. So we click on OK, and it starts to move together. How long can they hold it for? They just have to click on the OK button.
Saving best
When they
angle.
lose fusion, it saves their best angle, and if we click on OK again, we can repeat the experience. How long can they hold it for? And we can save their best angle. Fusion. And if they can practice and hold fusion to the point where the eyes have straightened, we have a chance again to reinforce the notion that it's okay for the brain to learn how to hold fusion with both eyes straight, and that for them it's okay because whatever underlying problem was causing this, whether it was cataracts or a problem with lens strength in the eye, whether it was due to premature birth and being an underweight baby, or the phases of learning how to combine depth perception with motor, the motor skills necessary to reach out and find out at what distance things are, whether these phases weren't in sync as they were developing in their first year. If those underlying causes have been tackled, this is now the point at which one can start to look at the retraining aspect. So we intend to build a whole suite of games and experiences on basically these tools.
Saving best angle.
And that is a quick look at what
Binocular suppression.
we've built in the second iteration of our prototype. Thank you very much.